Hello fellow Unreal Engine games developers. Today is a very exciting tutorial as we'll be upgrading our game so that you can play it over the internet using Steam. Let's get straight to it. Okay, so today we're going to take our game that we can play over the home network and we're going to upgrade it so that you can play it with your friends over the internet using Steam. If this is the first video of mine you've come across, follow the playlist in the description below and you can catch up on the build so far. So it's not terribly difficult to set this up. The only thing I would say is that it is very dependent, or so it seems, on people's versions. I'm using, if I go to the about, I'm using version 4.26.2, which seems to work fine for me. I've seen quite a few comments online, people with the newer version 4.27, the Steam plugins aren't working. And I'll also be honest, I spent a couple of days trying to get it to work the last couple of days, and I think it was just to do with session management. So today we're going to set up the simple solution for Steam networking, and then I'll do a follow-on video where I'll address session handling in a bit more detail, because we really need to clean up after ourselves when people leave games. So I'll do that in a part 2. But that being said, once we've done today's tutorial, we should be able to play games with people who have our packaged project. So we need to set a few things up in the project in order to get this to work. The first thing we need to do is get a couple of plugins for advanced sessions. So let me just switch to my browser. And I'll put these links in the description. The first thing you need to do is go to this page for advanced session binaries and then download the advanced sessions plugin for your version. As I said, I can only vouch for version 4.26, as that's the version I'm using. So I clicked on that and it downloads a zip file. You then need to go into this, unzip this. You'll see there's advanced sessions at the top folder level. Go into it and you'll find 2 subfolders, one called Advanced Sessions and one called Advanced Steam Sessions. Take both of those folders, copy them, and then go to your Unreal Engine game directory. So mine, if you did the default installation, it'll be something like this: Program Files, Epic Games, UE version number, and within that Unreal Engine folder, go into Engine and plugins and add those 2 folders in here. So you can see, along with all the other plugins that come with Unreal Engine, I've now added Advanced Sessions and Advanced Steam Sessions. So once you've done that, start up your project, go into Settings, Plugins, search for Advanced, and you'll find 2 new plugins here: Advanced Sessions and Advanced Steam Sessions. Enable both of those and it will ask you to restart your project. So click Restart Now. And it should take a few seconds. Well, it shouldn't take very long to restart. Okay, and now you've got the project with the new plugins to support the Steam networking calls. Okay, so come out of that now. That's the first thing we need to do and set up. The second thing we need to do is put something in our project engine directory to say we want to use the Steam network drivers. So again, if I go back to the browser, I'll give you a link to this page as well on Unreal Engine documentation. It tells you how to set up the Steam subsystem. And if you scroll down a bit, basically it's telling you need to set up these lines in your DefaultEngine.ini file. So it tells you each step, but if you go to the finish settings, you have everything you need to copy and paste in here. So let's do that. So just, again, you can get this up on your system, get these, or copy these lines, and then go to your project. So this is my project folder. Excuse me. Go into the config folder and there's that DefaultEngine.ini. Open that up and at the end of the engine.ini file, paste those items in. So these are telling the engine to use the Steam network driver to use the Steam platform service. And you might be interested to know that it's got this application ID of 480. This is a special developer application identifier that Steam provides so that you can use their network without having to buy an application, a specific application number. You can do that if you ever wanted to publish it to Steam, but all we're using Steam for here is really to use their network to connect our sessions together. And we can also do some things like get player name as well from Steam, so we don't have to get people to put their player name in. But we're not publishing our game to Steam. You still have to distribute your project to the players who want to use it. So this ID of 480 is a special one that they provide for free. Okay, so save the engine, DefaultEngine.ini file, and now we've done everything we need to do to set up the project. You don't need to restart this because we'll be running the game outside of the editor and it will pick up the default engine settings when we run the game. So before we try and connect using the Steam sessions, what we'll first of all do is we'll try and set it up so we can get the player name and player avatar and display it on the main menu. And the reason why I'm doing that first is it really shows that the Steam connections are working before we try and do the Steam sessions. So it's a nice first step. So the way we'll do that is go to your player folder and choose your game instance. And if you remember, at the moment we have we're getting the players to type in their player name in the main menu, and then when they click on it, we're storing it in this player name on the game instance, and then we can get it later on when we put up the scoreboards. So what I want to do is I want to upgrade this to get it from Steam instead of them typing it in. So not only do I want to get the player name, but I'm going to get the player avatar as well, just for a bit of fun. You might want to use that in the game later on as well. So let's grab it now. So as well as this player name, let's add a new variable and we'll call it player avatar. And it will be a type of texture 2D. So make sure you go down to texture 2D, object reference, and compile, save. So now we have placeholders in our game instance for those two. And now what I'll do is I'll set up a custom event, which I'll call get player info. And now what we want to do is use these Steam functions to get the player name and player avatar. Now, interestingly, the player name, if you set Steam as the engine, which we've just done in our default engine, it automatically puts the Steam player name into the player state player name variable, which is very handy for us. So all we need to do is get player controller. So player controller 0, so that's me. Then get the player state. And from the player state, get player name. And that player name will be the Steam name. It's as simple as that. And now what we can do is we can use Alt, pull the player name across here, and it'll do a to text as well because it's a string value that's converted into text. And we can then set the player name. So that gets the player name. And now what we want to do is we want to get the player avatar, and that advanced session Steam plugin usefully provides us a function for that. If I do get Steam avatar, you can see there's a function here, get Steam friend avatar. I can click on that. Now it's asking for a unique net ID. Now that is something that is also provided in the player state. So if we take the player state out and start typing unique, we can do get unique net ID from player state, and then we can plug that in. and it will use that ID in order to retrieve the avatar. You've got 3 different sizes of avatars, small, medium and large. I've gone for the medium here, which is the default, and the medium is 64 by 64 in pixels in size. So all I need to do now is take our player avatar, Alt, and we will set that. We'll set it on success or on failure, because if it doesn't have an avatar, we'll still just set it to null. And return value, our avatar will plug in to the variable. So if we call this function, it will retrieve the Steam name and the Steam avatar, store them in here, and then we can use them anywhere in the game because they're in the game instance. So that's the first step done. Let's compile that. And we shouldn't need to use anything more in here, so let's close that down. What I want to do now is go to my main menu player controller. At the moment, I'm putting out the main menu widget. So what I want to do is, before I put out the main menu widget, I want to make sure I'm connected to Steam and get that player name and image so that I can put them on the main menu somewhere, and that'll act as a visual cue that we've actually connected to Steam correctly. Okay, so what we'll do, actually take out this text player name because we don't need that anymore. We're going to be retrieving it from Steam. Create a bit of space here. Let's drag that, everything after begin play, over a bit. Now, the first thing we want to do is work out, are we using Steam? And we've got a nice little function in here, which is online subsystem. You've got this has online subsystem, and you need to put in the subsystem name, Steam, all lowercase, and this will check whether Steam is running or not. So let's do a branch with B. Plug in that check, and if it's not connected to Steam, at the moment we'll just do a print string that says not connected to Steam. In reality, you'd probably want to create another widget and put out a screen saying not currently connected to Steam, please connect to Steam and try again. But just for the simplicity of this tutorial, I'll let you do that in your own time. So that's if we're not connected to Steam. If we are connected to Steam, we want to carry on. And the first thing we want to do is get that player name and avatar. So if we do get player controller. Oh no, we're in the player controller. What am I talking about? Get game instance. And we need to cast that to our custom BP my game instance. And now we've got our game instance, and from there we can get player info. That was the function, if you remember, that we just created, and that will put in the Steam player name and the Steam player image into our game instance variables. And then let's carry on and do what we did before. Create the main menu, add it to the viewport, show the mouse cursor, and set the input mode to UI only. So the last thing we need to do in this first part is we want to update the main menu widget to show this player name and player avatar. So if we go to, let's close this down. Let's go to our UI and open up our W main menu. Okay, and we want to get rid of this player name input here. So go to the graph, and at the bottom you've got this set player name. Well, we're not using that anymore. We're doing that from Steam. So get rid of that whole section. Part and save. And now we can come back to the designer and delete the player name input box. And what we want to do now is add a box, horizontal box that has the player image and the player name, which we'll retrieve from the game instance. So get a horizontal box, drag it into the vertical box, and within that horizontal box we want a image, so drag an image into the horizontal box and a text field, and let's just sort out some of the layout of this. In the horizontal box, maybe just give it a padding of 20. It's up to you really, just to keep it apart from the buttons. Let's align it in the center. The image we're going to call, actually it doesn't need to be a variable because we're going to bind it to the game instance variable in a minute. So let's call this image player avatar, just so we remember when we come back to it. We'll come back to that in a second. And the text one we'll call text player name. Okay. All right, well, let's deal with these in place. So what I want to do is I want to bind these text and avatars to images to the game instance, but at the moment we don't have that there, but we can create a reference to the game instance and then we'll see it in the binding. So go back to your graph and create an event construct. This will get called when the main menu gets created. And what we'll do now is we will get our player controller. So let's copy that one there with Control W. Actually, don't need to get the player controller to get the game instance. Get the game instance, cast to my game instance, and there we want to store this as a variable. So just right click on here and say promote to variable, and you can rename it to anything you want. I'm just going to call it my game instance. Now we have this variable in the let's comment this, get game instance reference. So now we have that game instance reference, we can access it in the bindings. So compile, save, go back to the designer, and let's start off with the image. So we'll open up the brush, make it 64 by 64, give it some padding, and we'll bind it. Now you see that you've got the game instance reference, and we can bind it to the player avatar in the game instance. And in our text block, we will give that some padding as well. Just put some default text there, just for the designer really. And we'll bind it to my game instance player name. And we'll also put it in the middle. We probably need to make it a bit bigger as well. We make it 36. Okay, so now we have an image and a player name which should get populated, bound to the game instance player name and avatar, which we set up from Steam at the start of the game. So compile and save. This should, in theory, work in getting the Steam name. Now I've got Steam running in the background. If you don't have Steam running, it should go down that route where it puts out a print string of Steam is not running. So you can try that out if you want, but I want to just test out the game. So let's go into the project folder. This is what we did before. If you remember, when we were testing out, we did it outside the editor. And here's our project. Right click, launch game. Keep our fingers crossed. And here we are. So it has put out the game, and there it's got Unreality Bytes, which is my Steam name, and there's my Steam avatar. So that worked perfectly. If I go into host game now, it's just going to use the sessions we set up before on the LAN, so there's no different there. But that's a great first test. And in fact, let's do another launch game, because I just want to show you something else as well that shows it's connecting to Steam. Can you see at the bottom we've got the Steam overlay? So if we do Shift and Tab, it comes in here and it's got all of the Steam overlay options, which we will be able to use later on. For example, you can go into controller configuration. You can set up the controller the way you want to use it. I'm going to do a future video on some of the gamepad usage, which I left out of earlier videos. But you can do all sorts of things here. You can see who your friends are. You'll see that it's got this funny name, Space War. Remember I said that Steam provide this free app ID 480. Well, this is this game they've called Space War. I think it was a game way in the past, but they left it there for developers. So if any of your friends use your game and connect to Steam, you'll see them come up here saying your friend is using, or your friend is playing Space War. So you'll know they're in your game. And then Shift Tab comes you out again. So this is a good first test. We've got connection to Steam. We just haven't set up the networking yet. So let's do that now. So come back to the project and we'll close down the main menu. Actually, no, don't close down the main menu, because if you go into the graph, you'll see this is where we had our session creation and find in there. And this is actually really straightforward to do. All we need to do is we need to replace this create session with a create advanced session. And that will then use the Steam network that we've set up in the engine.ini file. So if you delete create session and instead connect create advanced session, and you'll need to create a bit of extra space underneath. So let me just move some things around. Let me just move the join and quit game down a bit. Okay. So as you can see, the create advanced session has quite a few more options. It still needs a player controller as input, so we'll connect our player controller, and we want our public connections and private connections to be our max players. So let's make that 4 and 4. 4. And then you can leave most of these, in fact, leave them all as they are, except use LAN. Don't change that. But remember, beforehand we had use LAN ticked because we were doing it on our home network. Now we'll leave that unchecked so that it's using the internet in order to make those connections. And then everything else leave as it is. Again, I'm not going to go through these in detail. Things like should advertise is important to be on, because that means that when we do find sessions, we can actually find it. And once we've created a session, just like before, on successful creation session, we'll open the level, and on failure, we'll put out a print string. Compile and save. And believe it or not, that's all you need to do. That will create a Steam session, and then we'll be able to find the session and join it. Now, just want to tell you about something I tried and it failed for me. If anybody in the comments wants to tell me what I did wrong or why it didn't work, then please do so. But I thought the obvious thing to use instead of find sessions is also a find advanced sessions. Well, I tried that and it just didn't find anything for me. So I went back to the original find sessions and I changed, and that worked fine. The only thing obviously we have to change here is we are not using the LAN anymore. We're using the internet, so you need to uncheck the use LAN box, but everything else is the same. It will find a session. Again, we're doing it quick and dirty here, which I will resolve in the next episode. We're assuming that with the first entry is the game we want to join. But sometimes sessions hang around and you'll get this session and it won't be active anymore and it'll just hang. So it should work in the short term, and then in a few days I'll publish the next session handling video and we'll be able to see the sessions to join, and we'll destroy sessions properly. So should work for now, but I'll improve on it in a later episode. And this is it. This is everything you need to do. So the let's go to compile and save. So let's try this out. So if we go into the game, we go into our, actually we've already got the folder open, haven't we? So if we go into the game and launch it, it comes up with the options here, and if I do host game, it creates a session and it goes into the game. Now you would think you can just fire up another version of the game here. And now I should just be able to do join game. But if I try it, nothing happens. And to be honest, that's the expected behavior. The reason being is that the Steam network only allows unique players to join a session. So because I'm using the same player ID, Steam ID and Reality Bytes, I can't join the session. The only way I can test this out is by packaging this up and putting it on another machine with a different Steam ID, which is what I've been doing for my testing. So it's a bit of a pain, but to test this out, what you need to do is package it out and send it to another machine to try it out. That's what I've been doing, and it's been working fine. Although, as I said, I've had occasional session issues where the sessions haven't disappeared. The other way you could do this, and I have heard this on some forums, while I haven't tried it myself, I might try it in the future, is you could set up a virtual image on your computer, like VirtualBox, and you could set up Windows and Steam on that and then drag your project in there, and that way you could use it on the same development machine. So I may try that in the future and report back. That might be easier than having to publish it to another machine. So you will need to package it up and send it across. So let's just check, nothing in the build. Okay, let's just delete everything that's in our build folder. This was from an earlier time I did it, and what I'll do is I'll package it up to use it, and we'll test that out. The reason I want to package it up, I mean, I could stop the video here, but the reason I want to package it up is I want to show you one extra thing you might need to do. Well, one extra thing you will need to do if you package it for shipping. So let's come out of here, and we will go into our package project. Now I'll set it up for development at the moment, and click on package, and it's Steam game. I'm going to put it in this build folder. You can put it where you want. And it's doing the build. Shouldn't take too long because I think I've built it before. So you can see it's going through and doing the build. Now, while this is doing the build, let me tell you of some of the problems I've seen reported. Some people have said that they get an error message saying that there's a missing C class, and there's a couple of videos online that show how to set up a blank C++ class to get it to work. I didn't have that problem. I may have had a problem because I've done this a long time ago where it said Visual Studio is required in red, and all I did there was get Visual Studio Community Edition, installed it on my computer, reran the package, and it worked. So let me know in the comments if you have any problems, and let's see if between us in the community we can sort them out. Hopefully you won't, and we have had a successful build here. So if I go to the build folder and double click on that game, it works just as it did from my Unreal Editor version. I've got the level blueprint still showing me a certain, or setting the resolution, so I should probably change that before I package it up. In fact, I'll do that before showing you the shipped version. So let's quit out here. That works fine, and come back up to the top level, and let's delete that file just so we got a nice clean build folder. I leave that there. Now I'll do it for shipping, and I'll show you the issue. So let me change the level blueprint first. So go to Maps, open up your main menu map, and go to the level blueprint. If you remember, here's where I set the resolution. That's just a quick way of me testing multiple windows. So let me get rid of that so that it will play in full screen, compile, save. Okay, so now I'm going to build a shipping version. Remember, we build shipping versions because they are much smaller. Certainly you don't need to do that till towards the end of your project when you're sure all of your bugs are ironed out. So build configuration, shipping. And now we'll package the project, Windows 64-bit, use the same build folder, check our output log. Again, it should be pretty quick, especially as it's been cooked before. So it's building this project with fewer elements for shipping. And it's just packing it up now. And packaging is complete. Okay, so let's go to the build folder and open up our Windows No Editor folder. And we now have our Steam game. Now, I'm going to open it up and nothing happens. You just get a blank screen. And this is because the shipped configuration works slightly differently. Let me Alt F4 to come out of here. In reality, when you play a Steam game on Steam, one that you've published up there, it appends a little text file with the application ID, that application ID of 480 that we're using for this game. In the development build, it appears to do that for you automatically, but in the shipped build, it doesn't do it, because in reality Steam would do that for you if you publish the game. But we can tell Steam what the application is by putting this text file in. So in your build folder, go into the folder with the name of the project, go into the binaries, Win64, and this is where you'll find your shipping.exe file, and create a new text file, text document, and make sure you get this right. Call it, oh, got caps lock on, all lowercase, Steam _ app ID. And once you've set that up, open it up and just type in 480 and save it. That's the application ID that we're using in Steam. So now it has this app ID. When we run this shipping version, it will find this app ID next to it and know that we're running the Space War special project. So if we now go back up to the top level now, we run the game in our shipping mode, it will work. So again, you might have, if you've tried this before, you might have fallen foul of this when you did your shipping build. Why does it work in development but not in shipping? But that's the reason why. And now we'll be able to host the game, and on our other machines, we'll be able to go and join the game. And you might think, well, yes, that'll work, but won't I have to do a lot of settings on my router in order to allow port forwarding? Well, no, you don't have to do that. One of the real joys of Steam networking is it does this thing called NAT punch through, which means that it allows the remote clients to connect through the relevant port, which I think is like 7777, something like that. So you don't have to do anything special. You might have a router that prevents it. Mine doesn't. I don't think most will. If you're playing Steam games, it's doing that already. The only thing you'll notice, and just to be aware of, is when you ship this and send it, you'll probably zip it up and send it to your remote players. When they play the game for the first time, they will probably have a firewall warning saying, do you want to allow this program to go through the firewall? Just get them to click yes, and then they won't get that message again, and you'll be playing fine. As you saw in my intro, I had no problems at all playing this remotely with my friends. It seemed to work fine. There wasn't any problems particularly or at all really. I noticed with latency, the physics worked over the network. So I'm very pleased with the way things are going. I'm going to end the session today, or this episode today now, but I'll be back in the next few days with a follow-up where we're going to handle sessions in a more dignified fashion, so that we make sure that we join the right session and we destroy sessions properly at the end of the game. So stick around, subscribe, and I'll be back in a few days, and I'll see you then. Bye for now.